You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Let's play a little game of Would You Rather, School Counselor Edition. Okay, would you rather spend your weekend planning a group or spend your afternoon sitting in irrelevant PD? Yikes. Or would you rather be the only counselor with no one to collaborate with, or to spend hours searching online for engaging activities? All of these options are pretty bad, right? But unfortunately, they're all too real. But what if I told you I had a solution for you? What if I told you I had access to hundreds of school counseling lessons, groups, and activities, counselor-specific trainings on the topics you need most, and a community of like-minded school counselors to support you? You would say, yes, please. Well, that is what Impact is all about. Impact is my monthly membership for school counselors, and it helps you with all of these things. You get access to hundreds of resources. That's unlimited free downloads. Log in and get what you need right away to every single resource that's in my store. We add new resources each and every month. We're adding a new middle school and elementary resource each month, and some of these are bonus Impact exclusives, meaning that you can get resources just for members. You can request resources that you need and easily search so you can find exactly what you're looking for. And let's talk about the trainings, counselor-specific trainings on the topics you need most. We do these each and every month as part of our Coffee with the Counselor series. Impact members get to join for absolutely free. You earn PD certificates and you get exclusive access to members-only things like the Ultimate Small Group Experience and our Summer Summit Conference. And the community. Y'all, this is possibly my favorite part of Impact. I so look forward to jumping on these calls, to getting to know counselors who are similar to me and also completely different. It's so fun to hear from your experiences and your challenges, and everyone brings a unique perspective to the table. We have an exclusive online community, and we even have a cool app where you can chat with other counselors in these community circles. We have our monthly calls, like I mentioned, twice a month, and we share wins, troubleshoot tough cases, and just talk about what it's like to be a counselor, because so often we're on our own island at our school sites. So if any of that sounds like it's for you, I would love to see you inside Impact. Go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact to solve all of your counselor problems. And I have a special offer for my listeners. Use code POD at checkout to save 10% off your first month. Okay, let's go to today's episode. Hey there, you're listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So as I'm thinking about the episodes we're doing this month, it truly reflects the title of this podcast, School Counseling Simplified, because I'm trying to simplify things that may seem like verbose and overwhelming to make them totally doable and easy to implement. That is my goal here, to support you as school counselors. That way you can spend less time focusing on this stuff and more time focusing on the kiddos, which is why we're here in the first place, right? All right, so if you listened to the previous episodes this month, I talked about direct and indirect student services. Today, I'm going to talk to you all about planning your counseling program. Now, the reason I'm covering these topics is because I'm referring to the school counselor competencies that is put out by ASCA, and I'll link to that in the show notes. It's a free PDF you can look at just to make sure that you're covering all your school counselor competencies. And it's divided into 4 areas: indirect student services, direct student services, planning, and assessing. So today I'm going to talk all about planning, which I'm a planner, so I love this one. And then next week I'll wrap it all up with assessing. Who wants to have a coffee with me? It's time for our February Coffee with the Counselor training, and I cannot wait to see you there. This month's topic, I'll be sharing how to advocate without a headache, my 11 secret strategies for advocating for your role as the school counselor. This is so exciting. I love this topic. We talk about advocating a little bit, but we usually just scratch the surface, and I cannot wait to dive deep with these top secret strategies for you. Thank you to everyone who came out for Coffee with the Counselor last month. It was our first one. We had an awesome turnout, great conversations. Thank you to all of you who were there. Let's do it again. I cannot wait to have coffee with you. For the price of your daily Starbucks run, you can have counselor-specific training designed specifically for you, plus a live Q&A, opportunity to chat with other counselors. It's going to be a great time. Save the date because this one is on February 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern. To sign up, go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/coffee. See you there. Okay, so let's dive in. When it comes to planning, so they've divided it into a few parts here, but the 3 I want to touch on are It says to identify gaps in achievement, attendance, discipline, opportunity, and resources. Another one is to develop annual student outcome goals based on student data, and then to finally develop and implement action plans that are aligned with the annual student outcome goals and student data. So I'm going to walk you through an example of this step by step. But before I do that, now I'm talking a lot about, looking at data to figure out, outcome data to figure out which students you're going to see and how to measure that. So I recommend going to episode 161. I'll link to that in the show notes as well. I did an episode all about data-driven small groups, and I tell you exactly how to do this. So check out that episode if you're interested in learning more about this. But to make it really simple, I thought we would go through and do a example. So let's say that we have, this is one that I was commonly referred with, so that's why I'm using it as an example. Self-control. I feel like a lot of times teachers will say, hey, I've got a second grader, they need help with self-control, they're getting in trouble all the time, and they need to learn some coping skills, okay? So you may be getting a referral like that. Or, while you're planning, you may be sourcing your referrals via data. So let's talk about that. It says to identify gaps in achievement, attendance, discipline, opportunity, and resources. So let's talk about discipline data. Perhaps you're going to your principal and you're saying, hey, I need to see our discipline referrals. We want to close this gap, right? We want less discipline referrals. We want more kiddos in school succeeding, not getting in trouble in the office all the time. So we can ask them, hey, what are you seeing kids for? And they're like, we're seeing so many kids who are, snapping and hitting each other at recess because they don't have self-control skills. So you're like, okay, I can do a self-control group based on this, or I can see the student one-on-one based on self-control. So right there, you're doing the first part. You're identifying a gap in achievement, attendance, discipline, opportunity, and resources. In this case, discipline, right? You're identifying areas of success or gaps, right? And you're like, okay, the issue here is we're getting a lot of discipline referrals related to self-control. So then you're going to move on to the next step. And the next step is to develop the student outcome goals based on the data. So you're like, okay, now we're seeing that issue self-control. So what is our goal here? What is our improvement plan that we want to do? So just like special education students have IEPs and it's very goal focused and we revisit the goals, this is a little more informal than that, but basically the same thing, right? So it's so gratifying to have a measurable outcome, right? And how can we do that? We can do that by using a SMART goal. So you're going to write a SMART goal, so something that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So your goal or your objective for your student sessions or your group would say something like this. Students will learn 3 self-control coping strategies to use when they're feeling upset. Okay, so I just came up with that goal off the top of my head, but let's think about it. 3 strategies. That's specific, right? We have a specific number of strategies they're going to learn, which makes it measurable. Did they learn 3 or not? You can measure it using a pre and post self-assessment. Attainable. Is that attainable and realistic, right? Like, can they learn these strategies? And yes, through doing the activities and everything, they can. And then time-bound. We're going to meet with them in a short-term solution-focused setting, so 6 to 8 weeks of sessions. And then part of this is always using the data and the results from survey tools to monitor and refine the goals, right? So you want to say, like, is this goal working? Maybe we thought this was a good goal, but we're seeing that it's not. Like, always be flexible to changing and tweaking based on data. Okay, so we've determined the need, right? We've determined why we're going to see the student because we have discipline referrals for self-control. Then we determine, maybe we got a referral from a teacher as well. Then we're like, okay, what are we going to do for our goals? How are we going to create our objectives? Well, we're going to create a SMART goal, making sure that it's hitting all those metrics. And then now we're going to implement it, right? We're going to develop and implement the action plan that is aligned with the goals. So what does that look like? Very simple. I always like to just write it down. Write down an outline for your group. Say, okay, session 1. What's the objective of session 1? We're going to teach these 3 coping strategies. Well, realistically, this would probably be like session 3 because session 1 is probably going to be more like rapport building, introduction, whatever. Okay, so let's say session 3. By session 3, this is when we're directly teaching the 3 strategies, okay? And we're going to, teach that through role play, and we're going to practice using the breathing skills. We're going to, through a variety of activities, like the actual meat and potatoes of your group is where you're implementing this action plan, right? And then you want to make sure that it's aligned to the ASCA student standards, the mindsets, and behaviors. So what you can do, and I talk about this all the time, I'll link to it in the PDF as well. I'll link to it in the show notes. It's another free PDF on ASCA called the Mindsets and Behaviors, and you're going to find the ones that match what you're teaching, right? So we're doing self-control. So I'm going to look at it here, and I see category 1 is more mindset standards. So none of those really are going to match right now. But category 2 is behavior standards. So we're measuring a behavior, so this will be perfect. And it's divided into 3 categories: learning strategies, self-management skills, and social skills. Well, self-management skills, there you go. Self-control is a self-management skills. And then if I go down here, I see more than one. First off, there's one that says self-discipline and self-control. Perfect. That's a behavior we want to target. Then I see one that says effective coping skills. That's a behavior I want to target. Perfect. So these are 2 ASCA-aligned objectives that I can put on my outline and say, this is the behavior that we're going to target. This is the behavior standard that we're teaching. And this is going to make you feel so much more confident, right? Like you have a measurable thing you're doing. And the funny part is you're probably already doing this. Like you're likely already seeing kiddos. You likely have a teacher who's like, okay, John is really struggling with self-control. Can you see him? And you're like, sure, bring him in. And then you're like, okay, John, I'm going to play this fun game with you to teach you some strategies. And then he learns them, and then it's great, and everything's better. You've probably been doing that for years, which is awesome and totally effective. But this is just making it a little more formal and a little more standardized. That way you can communicate the power of our role. And I'm passionate about advocating because I feel like so often counselors are doing incredible work, but it's just going unnoticed because we don't really know how to clearly communicate it. But this way you can tell your administrators, this is great news, guys. You have a discipline issue related to self-control. I can help you solve that. We're going to do this group. We're going to base it on these standards. We have these SMART goals and objectives that we've picked out. Now we're going to measure it using data, which we'll talk more about in the next episode. And then hopefully, ideally, which it likely will based on the example, you're probably already doing it, hopefully that gap closes, right? Hopefully they're getting less referrals as a result of your group. And they're like, oh, that counseling group worked. We're getting less discipline referrals. Woohoo! So it's really exciting stuff. So hopefully this has helped you understand kind of, all of this jargon about annual student outcomes and action plans, and don't let it be overwhelming. It's really as simple as that, right? So those are your 3 steps. Step 1 is identify the gaps. Step 2, develop the goals. And step 3, implement the action plan. And then you'll move on to assessment, which we're going to talk about in the next episode. All right, guys, I hope you found that super helpful. Have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you next week. Oh, and don't forget about next week's Coffee with the Counselor training. This month's topic is how to advocate without headache. I'll be sharing 11 secret strategies with you. I am so excited for this one. I've prepared an awesome presentation. You're going to absolutely love it. Okay, so that is on next week on Wednesday, February 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you want to save your seat, go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/coffee. And Impact members, you are already getting it for free. Okay, see you there. Bye.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.